Hello, you're welcome along to the Matchbook Champions League podcast. It's semi-final time. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by two of the guys this week, Mark O'Haire and Miguel Delaney. Two fascinating encounters there. We've got Real Madrid versus Manchester City. Obviously, that's on Tuesday night. And then we have the Milan derby, a lot riding on that on Wednesday night. Before we get going, if you are watching on YouTube, do hit that like button. Get involved in the comments and the live chat if you're watching the live stream. And if you're listening on the podcast, we would appreciate a 5-star review. It all helps to make the content get out to a wider audience. We'll get straight into the games here because we want to kind of cover the pricing here. And it's Real Madrid versus Manchester City, Champions League first leg, the rematch from last year. We'll take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. Currently, Real Madrid are 3.35, Manchester City 2.26, with the draw available at 3.7. Both teams to score yes is available at 1.61 with no 2.44. The Asian handicap line sees Real Madrid get a quarter of a goal head start at 2.0. And the total for this game is 2.5. And that's shaded a good bit towards the over there. So we are expecting goals here. Mark O'Haire, set up the game for us. It's obviously a fascinating tie. And look, a lot of people who would have listened to Champions League podcast last year, we kept getting Real Madrid wrong. And they kept surprising us right up to the final as well. So I was fascinated looking at the document Monday morning to see which way you would go here.
I'm going to be pro Real Madrid in this match. We know Man City are the highest rated team on the planet and the highest rated team by quite a distance too, which means they'll always go off very strong favourites, irrespective of who they're playing or where they're playing. An example of that was in the last round against Bayern Munich, where the market moved quite significantly in their favour, both before the first leg and the second leg, despite them not needing to win in Munich, and they went off pretty short prices in both. And I was quite happy to sort of oppose those prices, and happy to do so again because the odds here are saying they've got a 44% chance of winning in Madrid, which feels quite high. I think their price feels a little bit short, really, because you can pick a couple of holes in this Man City team. But, I mean, to start with, just got to give the opposition credit because I know City are being coached by one of the best coaches in the planet. They've got the best forward in terms of finishing on the planet. They've probably got the best playmaker too. But if you direct kind of comparison the two teams and the two setups, it's Pep versus Ancelotti. Not a huge difference there at all. Benzema versus Haaland, De Bruyne versus Vinicius. I think Real Madrid do actually match up pretty well in most key areas. And team news on Monday suggests that Nathan Ake might be missing, and I think he's been one of the sort of steady eddies, one of the more sort of players of the season, which hasn't kind of come to the fore in the same way as Haaland or De Bruyne may have done. I think he's been brilliant actually, and that could be a real blow really for City, and we just don't know how Pep will look to sort of coordinate his defensive structure coming into this match because it's worked pretty well as a 3 with the new look system, but knowing Pep Guardiola, he tends to do something a bit different in the big matches that matter. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll have to see, but clearly Real Madrid have the experience, and in terms of the experience, this is their 10th Champions League semi-final in 12 years, which is incredible consistency, and the team has evolved over the last decade or so, and I think we'll see a bit of that in midweek with potentially Camavinga playing left back again. He's done pretty well there for the most part. Fede Valverde filling in midfield as well. His energy to support in attack, but also to drop back and support the defence is quite key. And the fact that this game is in Madrid, they don't lose often at the Bernabeu, and they don't lose too many games by a wide margin either. So, Madrid were the strongest side in La Liga this season, according to the underlying metrics. They were the highest rated team, despite what Barcelona have achieved. And I think that is kind of saying something. This team is a team. They are capable, and I think they do come to the party in the big matches that matter. So, I don't want to dismiss Man City as no hopers at all, because they've got the ability here to go and do a job and do it quite impressively too. But I looked at City's away record in this competition. At the quarter-final or the semi-final stage, they've played 9 times under Pep. They've only won twice away during the sort of business end of the competition, both of which were in 2021 at Dortmund and PSG, both by 2-1 margins. And what was interesting is both matches were played behind closed doors because of COVID. So they've not actually won an away Champions League tie at this stage under Pep Guardiola with supporters. We know they're a lot stronger at the Etihad, and if you look at their away performances domestically this season, they have been got at. They lost at Liverpool off the top of my head. They lost at Spurs as well. They haven't often convinced or put in 90-minute performances. I know they won at the Emirates not that long ago, but I think you can sort of pick holes in that price really. So I thought Real Madrid plus a quarter at 2.02 on the Asian handicap was was worth a look, actually. Getting paid basically if Real Madrid don't lose this match. It's a half stakes if the game ends all square, a full stakes if they do win it. And yeah, I think Real Madrid, fresh from that Copa del Rey win at the weekend, I think they're in a great position right now to go and get something out of this game. I do think City progress over the two legs, but I think Madrid can avoid defeating this one.
Okay, yeah, interesting play there for Mark. He's gone for Real Madrid plus a quarter of a goal at 2.02. And Miguel, I guess I wasn't overly aware of how maybe Manchester City haven't had that marquee win away from home in front of fans in the Champions League, which I think sets this tie up perfectly.
Well, I mean, the last one the game I was at, it was actually just the last of the old era, if you like, just before COVID. And they went. That felt quite diminished Madrid, one that was more in transition than we expected now. But obviously, this Madrid have actually quietly gone about, well, as quietly as you can do as you win the Champions League, building one of the best young squads in Europe, with obviously kind of two veteran stars in Benzema and Modric elevating them. I think this is a fascinating tie for all sorts of reasons, beyond the fact it's a Champions League semi-final, obviously, but also because of how driven it is by last year as well. I mean, you would almost think, given the nature of the way City went out, given the form they're on, that they would want, and like this is what you hear from kind of within the City camp as well, that they want to go out there and make a statement, that they can go and kind of do real damage to Real Madrid. But of course, the danger there is, as Mark has referenced, is this is at the Bernabeu. This is a team that knows how to control these games. We saw it earlier on this season, the last 16, with the way they went 2-0 behind to Liverpool, were completely unfazed and just unraveled them. So, and this is the great danger if you go at Madrid. But for all these reasons, and I think with the way City are playing, that Madrid haven't been completely watertight of late. And actually, we saw it in the Spanish Cup final on Saturday, where Osasuna caused them real problems. I think this is going to be much more like, say, the first leg last year than any Madrid City game we've seen recently, or any of the recent Champions League games. I mean, that was a 4-3, obviously, that went, and it ended up being that Madrid's third goal was the one that really cost City. But I'm tempted to go with something similar for that. But I suppose this is just keep it open. I'm going for over 3.5, which is quite high. I think, given the way that first leg went last year, and given these two teams right now, I think unusually high. And actually, and I know we'll get onto it later, but I do think this is going to be two first legs of quite a contrast here.
Okay, yeah, plenty of goals for Miguel. He's gone for over 3.5 goals at 2.9. Mark, before we move on from this game in general, a little bit on, there's been a couple of quotes for Manchester City to win the treble. I've seen a couple of odds against here. You've seen one odds on, which does seem very short. I guess the market expects Manchester City to, well, at least have a 50-50 chance to win the treble, it blows my mind. But the more you think about it, I guess you can make the argument.
Yeah, you can understand it. It feels quite shocking, actually, when you hear the prices on first glance. But I think 5-4 seems to be the sort of general quote of it, 2.25. But there was an odds-on quote as well last week, which was incredibly shocking. Real Madrid, you still got to overcome those, the best European team in history, basically, over two legs before you even get to play Milan or Inter. And of course, the winner of this tie will be heavily favoured in that final. But as we've seen in the past, Man City, when it comes to big matches in the Champions League, they're not bomb-proof. They are a very short price to beat Manchester United, but that is a huge game, obviously, in the FA Cup. Big City rivals. We expect them to win the Premier League. So, yeah, I think it probably is understandable, the price, but when you're at first, it does kind of set you back a little bit until you do sort of do the maths and just work out, actually, there probably are about a 5-4 shot to do this based on the prices. But, yeah, it's not for me.
No, or me, but it just seems, look, it's probably still going to happen, but it just seems quite incredible when you said that to me. So, yeah, City, just quick on the outright market. City 1.74, Real Madrid 5.2, Inter 7.2, and AC Milan 9.8. And it is those Milan clubs we'll get to now. It's the Milan derby in the Champions League semi-final, and this is going to be a huge game here in the San Siro. We'll take a look at the betting that we have on matchbook.com. You can currently back AC Milan at 3.35 in the 90-minute market. Inter Milan are 2.54. The draw is 3.2. Both teams to score, yes, is available at 1.86 with no around the same price. The Asian handicap line sees Milan get a quarter goal head start at 1.86, and the total for this game is 2.5. So Miguel set this up for us. Serie A this year, I'm very interested in the subplots to this game, given that they're both going for fourth place in Serie A. They're both in the Champions League semi-final. You could end up with one of these clubs not having Champions League football next season.
Well, that's exactly it. And it feels like the stakes are all the greater. Also because, I mean, as we've just been discussing, I mean, Madrid almost always in the Champions League semi-final. Madrid City is a tie that's now been played 3 times in 4 years. Whereas there's no guarantee, even allowing for the relative resurgence of Serie A, I would say. I wouldn't go overly strong with that, even though this is a Milan derby in a semi-final. There's no guarantees either of these will be back. It's such a kind of a historic opportunity, which is rare given that these two clubs have 10 Champions League between them. But that's the nature of the modern game. I do think, even though it's a Champions League semi-final, they've benefited from the draw in that pretty much all of the strongest sides in order, you would say, bar Napoli, who Milan obviously eliminated, a rare spike for Milan in their recent form. They were all on the other side. But it does, just from like in researching ahead of this game and speaking to a few people, and I suppose this also comes from the fact it's a derby. Remember, like the ultimate example of this was when I went to the Super Classico, the game that never happened in Buenos Aires in 2018, in which, and obviously the Milan derby doesn't go to those extremes, but the sense we're getting is similar in that it's a game governed by fear of losing to the opposition you don't want to lose to, rather than kind of the great hope of getting to a Champions League final. And I think all of that is going to feed into something that's going to be the complete opposite of the match at the Bernabeu, which is an extremely cagey match. Now, I know Milan have obviously, over the longer term, they've been changing approach. They are capable of playing a pressing game, but a lot of their success in the Champions League, and certainly those results against Napoli, have been built in a more cautious style. Obviously, Simone Inzaghi is more pragmatist as well. And I think because of all that, this is going to be a game that will maybe be engaging rather than entertaining, kind of one that's defined by the tension. And I'm going for under 1.5, which is 3.05, which feels very low. But it's going to be tight. And I think a 0-0 is a good bet as well.
Okay, yeah, this is set up for an unders. Mark, I see you smiling in agreement there when Miguel was chatting.
Yeah, very much agree that the fear of losing might overbear both of these two teams. It's an enormous occasion, expected in a really good atmosphere at the San Siro. I know home advantage is a little bit blurred in these kind of environments, but there will be the majority of Milan fans there instead of Inter. But I think Inter are the strongest suit of the two teams, especially if Rafael Leao does miss out through injury. He got a thigh injury at the weekend. He's rated doubtful. He's training alone. On Monday, we'll have to wait and see, Tuesday and Wednesday, whether he is fit enough to be available. But that's a huge blow for Milan if he does miss out. In terms of them defensively, they've been pretty strong, pretty rigid throughout the knockout stage. And actually, the last 6 Champions League matches, they've only conceded the 1 goal. And their sort of upturn in form has kind of coincided with Mike Maignan, the goalkeeper, coming back to full fitness. And he is absolutely incredible. He will be one of the best goalkeepers in the world if he's not already. The only goal they conceded in that six-game sequence came in the 93rd minute against Napoli. But actually, if you dig a little bit deeper, they've given up 6.8 expected goals in those 6 games. So that's how sort of knockout football can work in your favour. Those kind of intricacies a bit of variance goes in your favour, and you're in the semi-finals of the Champions League. But in terms of Inter, I wasn't massively impressed by them against Porto, but I thought they managed to tie really well against Benfica. Obviously had a tougher schedule with Bayern and Barcelona in their group, but they've kept 3 clean sheets and 4 knockout ties as well. Andre Onana between the sticks has been brilliant. So defensively, I think both teams are well capable of kind of keeping the other out or keeping things pretty locked down. But I would give the edge to Inter. They've beaten Milan in the last 2 without conceding. They've turned over Napoli in Serie A, like Milan have. They also ousted Juventus in the Coppa Italia and managed that tie really well over 2 legs. And obviously, the tie against Benfica was quite impressive too. So, to me, they're a big game team, Inter Milan. The issue is, do I really want to back them, draw no bet, or +0 on the Asian handicap around sort of below 1.8? Not particularly. So I thought the better angle was to take under 2.25 goals. That's a bigger price. It's about 1.9, and therefore you get the 0-0, the 1-1, or the 1-0 or 2-0 either way on your team, rather than just sort of backing and relying on Inter to have to win the game. So I think that's a better route than sort of finding anything Inter-based or anything Milan-based either. Yeah, I just think I agree with Miguel entirely that magnitude of the match, the rivalry, being a first leg knockout tie, the standard of goalkeeping. And also, I think Italian football, I'm not going to call it catenaccio at all, but it has sort of taken a sort of a step back compared to the previous 2 seasons in terms of goal production this season. And these 2 teams have kind of followed suit as well. So 6 of Inter's last 9 in Serie A against the top 6 have gone under, as did both Coppa Italia semis against Juventus. And 11 of Milan's last 14 in the league have gone under. I still remember the Spurs tie, which was incredibly dull over 2 legs, especially the second leg when Spurs had to sort of go at it. And they kept Napoli at bay for the most part in the quarterfinal too. So, yeah, I'm happy to sort of go against goals here for all the same reasons Miguel's mentioned too.
Okay, yeah, we got 2 unders angles in Milan versus Inter there. And we're going to move on to our long shot section, which kind of incorporates both those angles. So for those people, Mark, we'll hand this back to you. For those that just want a fun bet and look at Champions League semi-final time, in fairness, the markets are very tough to get ahead of. And if someone just wants a fun bet, maybe for beer money, as you always talk about, to watch the first or the second leg of the Champions League game, what sort of bet are you want them to cheer on?
Yeah, I'd be taking the 0-0 draw at 9.2 on Matchbook. It's not a fun bet to cheer on, but if you do have a couple of loose change kind of flying around, happy to have a little crack at that. It won't be fun to follow, but it's a big price for a match that we all expect to be very close, very competitive, very tetchy as well. So I'll be going low on goals and high on cards in this game. It should be quite feisty. We've got a Spanish referee too, so a huge occasion for both. I think it's 13 years since Inter were at this stage and 16 since Milan were too. So, which is incredible really for 2 clubs of this stature. So massive match. So yeah, don't expect it to sort of escalate into a high scoring affair.
Yeah, Inter haven't been back here since winning it in 2010 from memory. Miguel, over to you for the complete opposite, for those that might go out on a Wednesday night now for the Milan Inter and won't cheer on that bet, but keep an eye on the flash score, live score. But Tuesday night, they'll be sitting watching the telly. This result will be some game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, Mark had it in basically the 0-0 ahead of me. So I would have gone for that Wednesday. So for variety, I may as well go all out with. But as I said, I think this will be back and forth. There'll be goals here. There's defenses that can be got at. I think particularly City's flanks, which is something that have been an issue in recent games, but they've just about weathered. I think Vinicius can really hurt them. But on the other side, Madrid have been quite loose. And it's not just Haaland actually in the form he's in, but also this new system that Guardiola has created. Well, it's interesting, I suppose, it's come full circle in that as they're saying, it's the Johan Cruyff box that he used at Barcelona when they won their first Champions League in '92, that Guardiola was part of. Guardiola's now kind of reconfigured that for this City to get the best out of Haaland, and sure he has this balance with Haaland without having to compromise in his approach, and has allowed De Bruyne to play so close to Haaland. And yeah, for all of that, I think this is going to be end to end with that reflected in the score. And I'm going to go. I mean, I suppose this is an element of this is kind of more picking out any score, but 3-2 to Madrid feels somewhat logical as logic can be. In a long shot.
Yeah, 36.0 is some price. You don't need much justification to have a couple of quid at that. So that's 3-2 to Real Madrid. And those correct score markets, using the exchange, in particular Matchbook betting exchange, they're great just before kickoff. And look, Mark's just pretty pointed. Mark's always touched on these correct score markets. The any other home win covers 4 goals or more for Real Madrid. You can get that at 23.0, and any other away win that covers a win for City with 4 goals or more as short as 11.5. So yeah, fascinating couple of markets and options there in the correct score. But back to you, Miguel, on the best bet. And Mark may have stole your correct score, but you're sticking with this under 1.5 goals Milan versus Inter. It is a kind of game that Mark touched on the 0-0, but even if there is an early goal, I don't necessarily think the game's going to open up either. So therefore, an under 1.5 goal could be the play.
Well, that's exactly it. And I think 1-0 could be as likely as 0-0. Yeah. Also, if you go back to these games in 2003 and 2005, that have been people have talked about them so much in the last few weeks because it is kind of the restaging of those. And that was obviously Milan and Inter sides with much better players, much better attackers. We're talking about kind of some of the best squads in the world at that point. And that was equally low-scoring games. So, yeah, for all of that, I think under 1.5 just gives us the out as well if it does go to 1-0. And I think that feels very solid.
Okay, under 1.5 goals, over 2-1, 3.05 currently on Matchbook. And then, Mark, your best bet is similar lines, a little bit safer option here, Milan versus Inter.
Yeah, for all the same reasons, really. Just playing it a little bit safer, a bit more pragmatic, really, in my approach. But Basically, 3 goals or more will bust this bet, but 2 goals or fewer, and we'll make some money. Full stakes if it's just 1 or 0 goals, but a half stakes win if there's exactly 2, which just covers the 1-1 or the 2-0 for either team. But yeah, I don't anticipate this match featuring 3 or more goals. I'd be very surprised if it did.
Okay, yeah, we're fast. 2 completely contrasting predictions for the games, but it's hard not to disagree with the lads. We'll see. Football makes a fool of most of us, so we'll see come Monday how we're getting on when we preview the second legs. And the guys will be back alongside Adrian Clark this Thursday to preview another fascinating game in the Premier League weekend. But until then, we'll chat to you then inside.matchbook.com if you want a recap of the guys' bets. But we'll chat to you on Thursday. Bye bye.